Hello everyone and welcome to Louise Singleton Creations. Today you're going to see me having roaring good fun with my dinosaur moulds from Let's Resin. If you would like to see me cast resin dinosaurs and then paint them to look absolutely super cute, stay tuned and enjoy the video. I'm going to be using both of my dinosaur moulds today, but I'm going to be measuring out the resin for each mould separately. Most of Let's Resin's moulds do have the mould volume printed on them, so that makes it really easy. I knew exactly how much resin I needed for each mould. And the reason I mixed the resin for each mould separately was because my silicone pots just weren't big enough to put all the resin into one pot. The resin that I'm using for this is Let's Resin's Deep Pour Resin, which is a 2:1 mixing ratio by volume. I've already marked the side of the pot so I know exactly how much I need very easily, otherwise it's very difficult to see the numbers on the sides of those silicone pots. I gave it a really good mix up with my automatic mixer, also from Let's Resin, and then I added some pigment. I wanted my dinosaurs to be opaque. I'm going to be painting them and I just needed a coloured opaque background. So I used some of Let's Resin's opaque liquid pigment for each of them, and I did add some mica powder as well just to make it a little bit more sparkly. So normally after mixing up my resin, I would put it into the bubble remover machine, which you will have seen me use quite a lot, also from Let's Resin. But this time I'm not. Last time I used resin, you will have seen it in the video if you watch my videos regularly, I had an issue with bubbles even when it was the deep pour resin, and that's because of the heat we're having at the moment. Because it's so hot, the resin is curing much quicker, which means your resin won't be as clear if it cures too quickly. That's actually one of the reasons why I don't like curing machines. I don't think you should speed up the curing. It takes a long time for a good reason. So anyway, because it's so hot and I knew it was going to cure quickly, I thought I would put it in my pressure pot this time. And because it was going in the pressure pot, I didn't really need to use the bubble remover machine as well. The Triceratops looked like it was going to be super cute, and so I thought a nice baby pink would go well for that one. And for the T-Rex, I went for blue. Here they are out of the pressure pot and ready for demolding. However, can you see there's a gap at the top? That's because it's been in the pressure pot, and that's what happens because of the pressure in there. Everything that's, all the gases in there get squashed so small, the volume becomes less, and so you end up with a gap at the top. So the quickest way to rectify that is to use some UV resin. I'm not saying it's the best way. I think epoxy would be the best way, especially if you coloured it the same colour as the rest of the dinosaur, but I didn't have time for that. I quickly got some of my Let's Resin UV resin and my wireless lamp and filled it up. I did it in 2 layers because the gap was quite deep and it's best not to do UV resin too deep. And then it was time to get them out of the moulds, and I was slightly concerned, I have to say. I could see that this one would be difficult, but probably not too bad. I was more worried about the blue one, and we will get to that one in a minute. I got there eventually, but what I will say is it wasn't easy. You might find it easier if you take it to a sink and have it, put it in some warm soapy water. That will definitely help. The heat of the water makes the silicone more pliable, and getting the water in there helps, between the resin and the mould, helps to break the seal as well, and everything goes much more smoothly. However, I couldn't really do that so easily with the camera filming it all. Anyway, it was hard. It really was. And so if you have any kind of trouble with your hands, like arthritis or anything like that, or you don't have much strength in your hands, you will need someone to assist you with this. And this one, I've just looked, I timed it. It took me 1.5 minutes to get this out of the mould, which isn't too bad, is it? It seemed like a heck of a process while I was doing it, but when I look back, it wasn't that bad. But we will see what happens with the blue one in a minute. Anyway, I always, before I start looking at what I've made, when I've turned a mould inside out, I can't leave it inside out. I've got to get straight to it and turn it the right way around. It's just one of those things with me. Can't leave it inside out. So anyway, look at the texture. I think there's a lot of detail in this, and I was really quite excited to start painting it. So yeah, lots of nice texture there and a very cute pose. So let's have a look how it went with the blue one. Right, so the bottom half was no problem at all. You start with the tail and then peel it downwards and get the tummy out as well. And yeah, so the tail and the tummy, no problem at all. But then there was the head. I'm sorry about the noise in the background. Someone thinks it's cool to go up and down the street on the motorbike really loudly. Anyway, you can't have your windows open these days, can you, without being disturbed? I will carry on. So as you can see, I'm struggling. And I was thinking, how's this going to work? Which side should I stretch it on? Because it was going to have to be stretched. And honestly, I think it's time to go into speed up mode. I could have just cut out all the time I spent struggling, and I did cut out some of it, but I thought it was only fair to show you that, with this mode you are in for a little bit of a struggle. I have to be honest. I know I do like to promote Let's Resin's things. However, I'm always honest as well, and that was really tricky. However, it was worth it. I think this T-Rex is such a dude. Isn't he cool looking? Look at that big smile. I think I've already mentioned that I'm going to be painting these. I know most people will probably brush the mould before adding the resin with different chameleon powders or metallic powders for a really cool effect. But I do like to paint them, and it did take me a long time. So you will only be seeing parts of the painting process. I will explain the parts that I think will be useful to you, but other than that, I will probably just put some music on because, well, you don't need me to talk all the way through, do you? For each of the dinosaurs, I chose 3 paints, all in the same colour family, but I wanted a dark, a medium and a light. I get a lot of people who comment on my videos when I've been painting saying they don't have the confidence for painting, and so I wanted to show you an easy technique that you might find useful. So what I like to do if I want to do it quickly, is paint on the dark paint and then rub it off again afterwards, and that way the dark paint will stay in all the grooves so that the texture is enhanced and you can see it a lot better, because there's a lot of texture in these. So that was what I was doing here, just covering it as much as possible. Before, I didn't want it to dry too much, so I kept checking as I was painting it that it wasn't drying too much. That's why I didn't paint it all at once. So already that's made a big difference just from doing that. You don't have to do any fine brushwork to make it look good. So then the next step to make it look even better is another easy one. Get your lightest paint and dip your brush in, but then rub most of it off. As you can see, I'm working here with a puppy pad. It's just a really small disposable puppy pad. And they're so good when you're painting because you can dry your brush on it, wipe your brush on it, whatever you want to do. And you will see by the time we reach the end of this video that that puppy pad is completely covered in paint. So useful. Anyway, I'm waffling. Once you've got your pale paint on your brush, dry it off on a paper towel or your puppy pad and hold your brush horizontally and kind of brush it without going downwards into the cracks. Kind of stroke the surface, and that way you're just painting the raised areas and leaving the grooves that you've just filled with the dark paint, and you get a much better contrast of the light and the dark, and the texture looks really good. And at that point, if you wanted to, you could stop painting, you could finish his eyes off and leave it at that. You don't need to do anything fancy if you're not confident with painting. However, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to carry on because I always get carried away. And here it is, all finished, and I think it's super cute. I think the texture technique that I used at the beginning worked really well. I actually started the T-Rex in exactly the same way, doing that technique with the dark paint into all the cracks, but I ended up doing a lot of painting on it and it all got covered up anyway. But still, if you want to keep it simple, just do the dark paint in all the texture, then the light paint on top, and you're good to go. But I'm getting ahead of myself now because what I'd forgotten was with the blue one, I decided to try doing all the white paint first, and hopefully I was thinking that would save me some time because it did take me a long time individually, carefully painting each of those spikes on the other one. And I thought this might be a good idea. And you don't know until you try, do you? so Tyson the T-Rex was complete, although my husband does say it could be a velociraptor, in which case he can be called Victor. And I think he looks fabulous. And then there is also Tina the Triceratops, and I think she might be a little bit in love with Victor or Tyson, whatever his name might be. But I think she is just so cute. If you're interested in any of the products that I've used today, please find the links in the video description. If you've enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you would like to. And I will see you again next time. Thank you for watching and bye for now.